Welcome to the College Essay Advisors podcast. Before we introduce ourselves, here's a little preview of what's to come.
It's pulling from the same well that it's pulling from for every other student who's asking it to generate something from them. It will be easily identifiable. Admissions will know. Hi, my name is Stacey Brooke, and I'm the founder and chief advisor at College Essay Advisors.
Hi, my name is Becca Myers, and I am Director of Advising at College Essay Advisors.
And today we are going to talk about the three most obvious signs you used AI in your college admissions essay.
We'll
Ooh,
start.
you guys think we won't know. You think admissions won't know. We know. We
We know.
know. We know every time. It's actually kind of wild. And these AI tools, these generative AI tools that students are so tempted to use, and I understand this is a pressure-filled assignment, and these are busy times when you have to, concoct a million admissions essays to submit um, to the schools of your dreams. But the tools have limitations and they have red flags they throw up for anyone who has read a fair number of essays that have been created by generative AI. And it is so obvious to us when we read an AI sourced essay. And it will be obvious to the admissions committee at your school because their eyes are peeled, their ears are perked, they are they're ready to say no to you if you do this, quite honestly. So um, we're just going to break down for you how we know so you believe us that when you send to us essays to get assessed and ask us our opinions and they have been created by AI, you get messages back from us immediately that say you got to write this by yourself. Here's how we knew.
Okay, so number one is that AI tends to produce what we call cold and hollow writing that lacks a really individual human voice and any specific details about your life. It has an inhuman quality. And I can give an example of this. I recently marked up an AI generated essay on failure in soccer. So the title of the essay was The Power of Persistence, Overcoming Failure in the Pursuit of Growth, which already sounds a bit like a TED Talk you don't want to go to, right? I mean, I'm kind of,
I'm already ZZZZZs.
yeah, I'm already like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to see this on like the self-help bestseller list? Like, I'm already not invested because there is sort of an empty, I don't know, an empty, like I'm on the stage wearing a headset trying to convince you to buy my book kind of
And
feel
it
to
is
it.
so non-specific. The power of persistence, overcoming failure in the pursuit of growth. That doesn't tell me a thing about what's going to be in this essay.
So to get to my point of the lack of details and storytelling indicating an AI involvement, the second paragraph of this essay, which is introducing the students' involvement with soccer, starts with soccer had been a central part of my life since I was a child. By the time I reached high school, I had honed my skills through years of practice and played in competitive leagues, believing that my dedication and experience would be enough to secure a part on the varsity team. And then it goes on to say I trained relentlessly. I felt confident during tryouts, but when the list of players was posted, my name was absent and rejection stung. So when I read that paragraph, the first thing that's happening is I don't have any indication of how soccer was a part of their life since they were a child. I don't know what it was like to kick the ball for the first time. I also don't know what it looked like to train relentlessly. I moved very quickly from soccer's always been a part of my life. Now I'm trying out for varsity. So what does it look like to actually put in the hours to train? What is the physical sensation of that like? What is the emotional commitment like? And then when I get to the
Also,
sting
Becca,
of rejection,
which player on that soccer team couldn't submit this essay? Every one of
right?
them
And
could.
anyone could, and we don't even know what position they play. We
Yes.
don't even know. Like,
Yes.
is this a goalie? Is this a wing? Is a wing a thing, or am I just hungry?
I have no idea. You cannot
Well,
ask me
well,
about the details of that. But I mean, and ultimately, and this essay does not do that, but ultimately, this should connect to something a little interesting, a little unexpected, um, a little less straightforward. And I mean, it doesn't have to connect to something weird and wild, but the main criticism of sports related essays and the reason that so many people say you can't write about sports, which is absolutely not true, is that many people write about sports in a way that doesn't differentiate them from other athletes. And this is already well on its way to doing that. If you're going to write about sports, you need to write about the impact that sports had on you, some interesting angle in terms of your training, in terms of some epiphany you had. Like there has to be something else. It's going to be about sports, but it's not really going to be about sports. So so this this hollow writing you're talking about, this formulaic feeling, um, and the fact that already I would not be able to differentiate which soccer player on the team is writing this and where two paragraphs in, those are all pretty. There are signs of bad writing in general as related to a college admissions essay, but it's also something that almost certainly happens when you pitch AI a prompt and ask it to write something for you in this style.
And the feeling I get is like I'm in an airplane, I'm doing like a flyover of the Midwest. I'm just seeing like beautifully curated blocks of land, but I can't like make out anything specific to the area. You know what I mean? I can't even see like
Hmm.
silo, a well-worn, well-weathered silo that indicates how hard a farmer's work. Like I'm just getting these beautiful
Yeah.
blocks of color. And
Right.
so, or not color, but just beautiful, almost like beige blocks. Like I'm getting vastness and emptiness. And so
Totally. There's no specificity. Like you had written something in your comments, and Becca has done the most beautiful job of marking up this essay, and I can't wait for everybody to see this section of our website where we give a little bit more on the page feedback related to AI generated essays. But you talk about like when the sting of rejection hit harder, like what did there's no talk of how that felt and what the author did to cope. Like, did they eat a ton of their favorite snacks, which were Oreos, because they looked like soccer balls? And I mean, there are just so many weird, fun things about your life that inject personality into an essay, and those are the things that ultimately end up being memorable. And there is there's none of that in AI because AI doesn't know you.
yeah,
AI.
A is not weird. Like that's the other thing. It's not really funny and it's not really weird. So Stacey's example from my comment about not only did you comfort yourself by eating Oreos, but then the step further, like were you eating the Oreos and you're like, well, God, that kind of looks like a soccer ball to me right now, and you can't even finish them. Like that's funny and that's so
Mhm.
specific that I don't think that can be generated by AI, at least not where we are now. So if I see that in an essay as a reader, I'm automatically thinking, I get a sense of how this person's feeling, and I really understand that this was generated by a living being. The other thing in this essay, what I walked away from after I finished it, we're going to talk about other parts of it, but the real robotic disconnect for me is that we hear so much about talent and skill, but at no point in this essay do we hear about a love of the game, right? So
Mhm.
in one of the paragraphs, the student talks about like, I sought feedback from my coaches. I focused on developing areas where I had been weak. I learned to become better at something that requires not physical effort, but how to handle setbacks. It's like, when did you just talk about falling in love with the game? Like, when did you go out, and sit in the field at night? Like, there
Yeah,
has to
there's
be
no heart.
something.
There's no
There's
heart.
no art at
Hmm.
all. So that's number one for us is the
Yeah.
hollowness that is reflected in lack of details.
Yes, for sure. And I think that hollowness also is reflected in number two, the number two way we identify if your essay is written by AI, which is the presence of an extraordinary amount of cliches and truisms, a bounty of cliches. Um, I I think even when students write these essays themselves, I think there is a lot of defaulting to feeling like you must wrap everything in a tidy lesson-oriented bow, which we don't believe is true. We think there are a lot of different things you can communicate with a college admissions essay, and not all of them are, this is what I learned. But that seems to be what AI thinks the point is. And it has 1 million of the most cliche ways to spit that out. The opening line of this essay: failure is often considered a stepping stone to success, but the path to understanding this concept is rarely straightforward. I love a cliche in a cliche. Failure is often considered a stepping stone to success. It's not an attention grabbing way to catch a reader. It is so general. I have no idea what this will be applied to, and not in that mysterious, I'm dropping a little bit of a line for you to grab onto so I can reel you in kind of way, which we often encourage in an opening. Um, the last line in this opening paragraph is, it reshaped not only my approach to challenges, but also how I viewed myself and my potential. These are just, they're they're the most base, empty way to express these sentiments, and they're meaningless. They don't have the impact that a more specific, heartfelt, personality imbued statement would have. Um, I have
And you can
some.
do that work with a scene. Like I think my note was, if you're talking about what it means to have a setback and learn success and perseverance, maybe open with the moment where you are scanning your name for the list of players after tryouts and your name isn't there. Like I'm more engaged by seeing you looking at the list and then
Mhm.
having the next paragraph start with a one sentence summary about, something um, changed how I viewed myself and my potential. Like we only need one little kind of
Yeah.
truism there. We don't need a whole paragraph.
What's wild is that, so I did another exercise for Teen Vogue where I asked it to generate a college admissions essay about working a job at a local clothing store. And the first thing it spit out, the opening paragraph, was rife with cliches, truisms, etc. I'm going to read it. As I walked into my first job at a local clothing store, I had no idea how much it would shape my perspective on the world and ignite my passion for business. I mean, not a bad sentiment, but also not a dynamic opening line. I had no idea how much it would shape my perspective, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so there's the setup for the lesson we're learning. What began, and then it doubles down. What began as a means to earn some extra cash during high school turned into an eye-opening experience that taught me invaluable skills and nurtured my aspirations for a future and blah, blah, blah. So now it's saying the same thing a different way. Um, and it ends up being word salad. It's just soup. It doesn't actually say anything, but it sounds good. I think if
Just call
you
it
if you
AI.
read that and someone didn't have to process that and really understood what it meant, and had to like give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, does that sound like a college admissions essay? It totally sounds like one. And that's how I think people get fooled. So I read that paragraph and then I said to ChatGPT, can you make it like less predictable? I literally said, please make the opening line less predictable. And it said, instead of, as I walked into my first job at a clothing store, I had no idea how much it would shape my perspective on the world and ignite my passion for business. This is the more creative version. As I nervously stepped through the doors of a bustling local clothing store, little did I know, there we go again, that this seemingly mundane job would unlock a world of possibilities, sparking an insatiable curiosity for business within me. So it added some adjectives. It really did not do much. Um, and it's just because it is pulling from the examples that have been flagged on the internet and from its sources, that are supposed to be effective admissions essays, but it only has so much information about you that it can work with. And so everything it ends up spitting out becomes a trite cliche, um, expressed in many different ways. I am astounded sometimes at the number of bland truisms and cliches that can be stuffed into a single essay by ChatGPT. So for
But then
me,
go
that's
back
actually
and
the
get
number one marker. Like I right away, I'm like, oh damn, this is definitely AI generated.
the better opening would be as when I thought I couldn't possibly fold one more shirt with the Izod logo on it, right? Like
Hmm.
something like that, so that
Hmm.
we understand that there's a clothing store. We get a sense of maybe the merchandise you're selling, and we get a sense that you are working in the store. We get that from just like a small
Right.
phrase, right?
There are 1 million different fun, cool, creative ways to open that essay. Chat GPT, all of these generative AI platforms are terrible with opening lines. They really don't have that. They don't have that zip. They default to cliches. They default to that hollow writing that's non-specific. Um, so I think we're beating this point to death, but cliches and truisms, that's number two.
So the number three indicator of an AI generated essay is inaccuracy, not always getting the facts right. And Stacey, I know that you have an example of this.
Yes. This also came up a ton in the essay that I wrote and dissected for Teen Vogue. Um, so I'm just going to read you a little excerpt. I gained valuable insight into the importance of teamwork and collaboration. In the fast paced environment of the store, we worked as a tight knit unit, ensuring every task was executed seamlessly. Whether it was restocking shelves, arranging displays, or handling the point of sale system, teamwork was essential to maintaining the store's efficiency. Now, could that have all been true? For sure. Did I give it any of that information or did it just totally make that up? It absolutely completely made it up. Maybe I was the only salesperson at the store. Maybe we didn't have a point of sale system in the way this is describing. ChatGPT will just make it up. It just needs to complete your task. It's not concerned with whether or not the details are accurate. And, this is I think these are fairly good guesses by artificial intelligence in terms of what would be involved in working at a store. Not that they're particularly exciting to read about, but it will fill in the gaps because it doesn't know that much about you. Um, and you can feed it details and that can make it more accurate in terms of what it spits back out at you, but there is still a lot of room for random details to make their way in there, for inaccuracies that will absolutely turn admissions off, if they read and things don't add up or don't make sense. Um, and when you have easy access to your brain and all the facts and all your memories and things that actually happen to you, you should just write it. It's
Yeah, and for something like a why essay where the
yeah,
temptation to just plug it in and get the details, I understand that, but you'd have to go back and fact check it anyway. And at that
yeah.
point, it's just as
It's just
exhausting.
as
Like
much
just
work.
it
Yes.
is just as much work
Hmm.
because you cannot rely on
Yeah.
AI to get it right. You just can't.
Yes. Absolutely. In conclusion, AI is very complicated in terms of, how people can use it effectively. And it's not well suited for the college admissions essay, for the personal statement, or really for any of your application essays. I wouldn't recommend it if you do decide to use it for like brainstorming or, just for sort of early generative idea oriented tasks. Maybe you can use it to your advantage, but I would be really damn careful, um,
Yeah.
with what you submit that's related in any way to what one of these programs produces. It's pulling from the same well that it's pulling from for every other student who's asking it to generate something from them. It will be easily identifiable. Admissions will know.
And it's
And
also practice for college because professors now are really cracking down on AI in the classroom. My husband is a college professor, and I know that not only do they receive training on this, but they have the software to detect it. They make you sign like an honor code at his school.
yeah,
There's it's preparation for what's
yeah.
coming as well.
And there will be consequences, and rightfully so. Like this is the kind of thing that, if found out, will get your offer rescinded from a college. So I mentioned it in our previous AI podcast. I'll mention it now. Don't give admissions a reason to say no, at least not one that you have so much control over. You can write your own essays. You have the power, and you have the power to do it better than the machines do. You're more creative. You're more dynamic. You have the most to say about yourself, I promise. Um, So I know that these tools are tempting. Parents, I encourage you just to keep an eye out. I mean, these are good things to look for. Not saying your kids are trying to bamboozle you, but I do think there is a ton of temptation to use these tools out there, and it's just important we're all keeping each other accountable. Um, so do yourselves a favor, go through the practice. It will help you, and it won't give admissions a reason to say no if you don't use it. So that's our story. We're
That's all.
sticking to
That's all.
it.
That's our episode for today. Thank you so much for listening or watching. If you like our content, please like and subscribe to follow us for more. Happy writing!